Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And for this episode, I'm doing a collection update of sorts, but I am also incorporating some recent rewatches that I enjoyed of Blu-rays that I've had in my collection for a little while that I haven't looked at in a bit. So I'm going to incorporate some of that into the mix of this collection update, but I'm going to start with an actual new purchase, and that is Phenomena, the 4K UHD from Synapse Films. This, of course, a Dario Argento film starring Jennifer Connelly and Donald Pleasence. All about, the young Jennifer Corvino, played by Oscar-winning actress Jennifer Connelly, is sent to a private Swiss academy for girls where a vicious killer is on the loose. Jennifer has a unique ability to telepathically communicate with insects, and an entomologist, Dr. John McGregor, that's Donald Pleasence, enlists her help in locating the murderer. As the mystery unfolds, they find themselves in a bizarre murder plot with maggots, telepathic insects, and a razor-wielding chimpanzee. Can Jennifer uncover the killer's identity before becoming a victim herself? And it says Phenomena features a fantastic soundtrack of progressive rock gods, Goblin, British heavy metal masters, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Andy Sexgang, Bill Wyman, and Simon Boswell, Dalia Lazaro, Patrick Buchow, and Fiore Argento also star in this truly unique and gory, unsettling thriller. I'm just going to show you the package here real quick. So this comes in a really nice hardbox case, sort of a matte finish, really nice, from Synapse, who I'm a big fan of. They don't do a ton of releases, but the stuff they do, they take a lot of time on, and they end up doing a really good job with. So I always appreciate their releases and look forward to them, and end up pre-ordering. I got this one from Diabolic DVD. But it comes with a lovely soft cover book. Beautiful, really nice. A poster, which is the Creepers poster. It's a double-sided poster, actually. So you get Phenomena and Creepers. But that's super nice. They include that. And then, of course, our 4K UHD disc here, which has a lot of stuff here to talk about. Excitingly, it has new 4K restorations of all three versions of Phenomena, including the original Italian version, 116 minutes, the international cut, 110 minutes, and the U.S. Creepers cut, which is 83 minutes, a lot shorter. Presentations in Dolby Vision HDR 10 compatible, limited edition slipcase packaging, designed by Wes Ben-Scotter, and reversible sleeve. You can also do the Creepers artwork if you want, which I may flip that around now that I think about it. Anyway, so we have two 4K discs included here. Disc 1 is the Italian version. I forgot to mention that the booklet includes liner notes from Michael J. Coven and essays from Rachel Nisbet and Leonard Jacobs. I'm a big Rachel Nisbet fan. I love to see that she's been working with labels for essays and commentaries. Just a really great Italian horror fan and writer. Okay, so like I said, we have two 4Ks in here. And the first one is your Italian version. And it goes into specifics about the audio mixes, which is cool. It's English, Italian, DTS Master Audio 5.1, English subtitles, etc., etc. Audio commentary by Troy Howarth, author of Murder by Design, The Unsane Cinema of Dario Argento. I'm a big fan of Troy's, and I appreciate his commentaries. He always does a wonderful job. Then we have this really amazing Of Flies and Maggots, a feature-length 2017 documentary produced by Arrow Films. So this is coming directly from one of their releases. And they talk to a ton of folks here, including Argento himself, the cinematographer, production manager, special optical effects artists, and makeup effects artists, underwater camera operators, composers like Claudio Simonetti, etc. So a really great, thorough documentary that is one of the centerpiece supplements of this release. And then on the second disc, we have the international and Creepers versions of the film included here. And then we have an audio commentary on the international version by Argento scholar and author Derek Potelho and film historian, radio television commentator David Del Val. And then something called The Three Sarcophagi, a visual essay by Arrow Films producer Michael McKenzie comparing the different cuts of Phenomena. And it has a rare alternate 2.0 stereo mix on the international version featuring different sound effects and music cues, which is pretty cool to have that as well. But like I said, I think Synapse always does a really good job, and they always sort of make it worth the wait. You know, if they take a little while to put something out, like The Kindred or Massacre at Central High, you get it and you go, oh man, that was worth it. That was absolutely worth it. And this looks incredible, by the way. This is, I mean, you know, they have sort of a series of Argento started here in the 4K. They have a Suspiria 4K, which is one of the best looking 4Ks I've ever seen. And I'm hoping they'll do Tenebrae at some point. But this is just another great Argento 4K. And some cards here that came with it. Anyway, so now on to what I was talking about, which is some movies I've been rewatching. And then there's a few here that are like new watches of movies that I had on Blu-ray for a while. But I'll start with a favorite, and that is Midnight Run from 1987, I want to say. 88. Huh. And this one, yeah, just an all-time favorite for me. This is a Shout Select Blu-ray Collector's Edition. And it took a while to come out, but I'm so glad it's available. And just one of the great films of the 80s. Not just one of the great buddy comedies. Not just one of the great, De Niro performances, which it is. I mean, I put it up there with Heat and Raging Bull and, some of his best stuff. Taxi Driver. I mean, I really do think that his performance here is emotional and nuanced and so powerful, and all within this sort of comedy framework. And that's another thing. They don't do as much of the action comedies anymore. It was a short-lived thing, I think, in the 80s and 90s. And yeah, I miss it. I miss it a little bit. But anyway, the chemistry between De Niro and Charles Grodin is off the charts, incredible in this movie. And I just adore it. I mean, and as an aside, I adore the score. This is the Danny Elfman score. I think a lot of people maybe forget that he did the score to this movie, and it's very different than a lot of the scores he is known for. The sort of Tim Burton-y, Batman kind of, I don't want to say rompy, but like that sort of gothic orchestral. This is more, it's got, orchestral elements, but it's got guitar. And in fact, it even opens with this incredible guitar like lick that is like almost a blues guitar type riff that goes under the Universal logo. And it establishes so much almost right away, where it says like, we're about to see somebody that's a little down on his luck. It's like that kind of almost bluesy like thing. And then we see De Niro's character, and he's a bounty hunter, and we find out that he's was sort of run out of the Chicago Police Department. That sort of is revealed a little bit later. But he's down on his luck. Heavy smoker, getting shot at while he's trying to get his first, not his first, the bail jumper that he's trying to get at the beginning of the movie. And an opportunity presents itself. Also, he's been estranged from his wife and daughter, his ex-wife and daughter, for 9 years. Like, he's just not in a great place. And so an opportunity presents itself where there is a huge bounty on a bookkeeper played by Charles Grodin, who is, formerly working with this mobster played by Dennis Farina, who is incredible in the movie, who De Niro and he have sort of a history together. And so he has this opportunity to try and bring this guy in and make a ton of money and maybe, get a coffee shop or something. That's sort of his idea. And that sets him off on this adventure to pick up this bookkeeper, and we sort of go along with them. It becomes almost like a planes, trains, and automobiles kind of thing, because they try to get on a plane to get back, and that doesn't work out. And then they're being tracked by both folks from the mobster camp who want this bookkeeper dead so he can't turn state's evidence against him, and the FBI, led by an incredible Yaphet Kotto, who plays Alonzo Mosley, which is a name you hear many, many times in the movie, and there's a joke to it that I'm not going to talk about. But yeah, it's just so good in terms of the performance. John Ashton as Marvin Dorfler is incredible. Joey Pants as the bail bondsman. There's just so many great characters in this movie, and it's such a great arc, because it's almost like this bromance of sorts, where you have these two guys who hate each other at the beginning of the movie and really come to become friends. And they always talk about how they would have been friends in the next life. And so they always talk about the next life. And I just adore this film. And it just has an incredible ending, and everything just comes together, and it's just so funny. And the way that Grodin harasses De Niro's character is so great. And yeah, I just adore it. I absolutely adore Midnight Run. And again, the score from Elfman, his theme that is so, like I said, a little different from anything else he's done, is so uplifting and emotional and fitting the tone of the film. It's just wonderful. So I couldn't help but mention Midnight Run. If you haven't watched Midnight Run in a while, this Blu-ray is definitely worth a pickup. It has an interview with De Niro, new 2K scan, interview with Grodin, interview with Joey Pants, interview with John Ashton, interview with Yaphet Kotto, interview with writer George Gallo, and a vintage making of featurette. So a really nice collector's edition of Midnight Run. Just reminding folks that that's out there. Next up, we have That Thing You Do from 1996. This came up as part of my friend Patrick Bromley's F This Movie Fest. He runs, of course, the F This Movie website and podcast, and every year they do a all online Twitter film festival where they invite people to watch along and tweet along, and they give the list of usually about 6 movies, and they do it throughout the course of a single day, and they give the list and give plenty of time for people to get the movies or find the streaming services where they can watch them. And they'll usually do a single year. So this year they did 1996, and one of the movies that was part of that was That Thing You Do, which, of course, as you can see, is written and directed by Tom Hanks. The first, I don't want to say it's the first Playtone film production, but it's the first one for Tom Hanks directing. Playtone is his company, and Playtone is the record label in the film. And I want to say this is a Playtone production. Maybe Playtone comes later. No, it is, I'm sure. But and shot by Tak Fujimoto, who worked with Jonathan Demme. And anyway, so this is a really great little movie about. It's set in the mid '60s, I want to say. And it is about a band, a small town band that works their way into getting a single onto the radio, finds their way to a connection with a fairly major label called Playtone Records, and their rep, played by Tom Hanks himself. The band is, Ethan Embry and Steve Zahn and Tom Everett Scott and Jonathan Sketch, and Liv Tyler is like the boyfriend of one of them, and she's sort of like the supporting staff, like she helps with all kinds of stuff as they're coming up. But it's really interesting because Tom Hanks talks about it in some interviews I've found, and it's really great to hear his insights. Like, he talks about how he was always curious about the bands that weren't the Beatles, and a band like the Dave Clark Five, who he says he thinks is better than the Beatles, and like what happened to them. Like, why didn't they have the same meteoric success that the Beatles had? And what happens to those bands that are one-hit wonders? That, you know, they rise to prominence, they have a big hit, and then we never hear from them again. Why does that happen? And so this is a really interesting origin story because it talks about how this band has a drummer. Who plays the original drummer? Oh shoot, I'm forgetting now. And they switched drummers. They switched to Tom Everett Scott, who is this young guy who works for his dad at an appliance store. And he's a jazz drummer. He's kind of a beatnik. And so he sort of changes the band. Like, he shifts the band in a different direction. They're doing these ballads, and their big hit, well, one of their big songs is called That Thing You Do, but it's meant to be a slow song. And he sort of says, like, guys, let's pick up the tempo. And that song becomes their big hit, and it becomes kind of their meal ticket, kind of their calling card. And so it's because of him that the band then takes off and has some success and ultimately maybe runs into some issues. So it's really interesting to see how that all plays out. And it's really well done, and all the music is written by Tom Hanks and some other collaborators. Not just him. Like, it was a lot of folks working on the music, but it's all, I want to say it's almost all original music, but it sounds like music of the time, and so that's really cool. It's just a great little movie, and I forgot how much I like it, you know. It's also produced by Gary Getzman, who is the Gary that Gary Valentine in Licorice Pizza is based on. The guy who sold waterbeds and produced music, and he helps with the music here and everything. So anyway, I think there's an interesting line to Licorice Pizza to this movie. But a really great directorial debut from Tom Hanks, and just a really enjoyable film. And this includes both the extended and theatrical cuts. I watched the extended cut, and yeah, just really got a kick out of it. And Demi's a producer on this, so that's probably part of the Tak Fujimoto connection. That's great. But anyway, I don't know if this is streaming right now, so I think you might have to have the Blu-ray if you want it. It's a formerly Fox movie. Feels like something they could put on Disney Plus, as it's not too objectionable, really. It's PG rated, so that's kind of neat too. But really great little movie. Thank you to Patrick for reminding me to watch this again. So that's good stuff. Now I have a couple that from directors I know that I hadn't seen these movies before, but a couple of these I bought the Blu-rays, a couple of these I had the Blu-rays. Let's start with Dark Waters. Now, this is from Todd Haynes, and it is really interesting. It is from 2019, and I don't want to say it's underseen, but I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about it. Maybe because it was just at the opening of the pandemic, I feel like it might have gotten swallowed up a little bit there. And it's a really great, based on a true story about a real lawyer, played by Mark Ruffalo in the film. And it's all about chemical companies. And he plays a lawyer who works for a firm that defends chemical companies, when one day he's approached by a farmer, an older friend of his grandmother's, who is having some trouble with his cows keep dying. And he notices that there is a landfill for a large chemical company. Now I'm forgetting which one it is, of course. That is nearby his farm, and that he believes is causing the water to be poisoned and kill his cows. And he has some really gross stuff that's happening to his cows. And Ruffalo's character, who, of course, like I said, he works for these chemical companies, so he doesn't really think of them as evil. DuPont is the chemical company that his firm doesn't even work for them, but they are courting them. So this becomes a really tricky situation because the Ruffalo character, just starts to look into it and is kind of like, oh, what's happening with this stuff? I'll just ask them if they can find the EPA report. And the more he digs into it, the more the company seems to get, and its representatives seem to get irritated with him, until he realizes that there's something being covered up. And so this goes deep into territory that, is pretty well known to us at this time, that there are a lot of corporations doing some shady business practices to make money and not necessarily thinking about the well-being of the people. In this case, a small town where they have one of their chemical plants. And so this starts in like 1998, and it sort of progresses through into the 2000s, because this case in real life drug out for a really long time, and there were a lot of complications, and so it took a lot of dedication for this character that Mark Ruffalo plays, this lawyer, this real life lawyer, to stick with this case through all these years and take a lot of heat for it, and get him in not so great shape with his the firm that he works for and all this. So it's kind of like Todd Haynes' The Insider or Todd Haynes' Aaron Brockovich. It's very much in the vein of those movies, and it's really great. I really, really dug it, and I'm bummed that I had missed it when it came out. Anne Hathaway plays the Ruffalo character's wife. Tim Robbins plays his boss at the firm. Bill Pullman's here too. There's a really great cast of folks, and I just really recommend it. It's one of those like make you think kind of films. It's kind of like Todd Haynes is smuggling in some real issues and some real commentary here. And I just liked that Todd Haynes, a great filmmaker, doing a commercial film that is really saying something and really has an impact after you're done watching it. So I picked this up on Blu-ray. There isn't too much in terms of features. I want to say there's a few interviews here. They're kind of short. Uncovering Dark Waters and The Cost of Being a Hero, and the real people. You get to hear about the actual people this is based on. It's only about maybe like 17 or 18 minutes of interviews. I would have loved to have heard a commentary from Haynes, but that's not included here, unfortunately. But definitely worth seeing. Dark Waters. Another one that I'd never seen, from Richard Linklater, Bernie. And I've had this Blu-ray for years because it was a Dollar Tree Blu-ray for a while, because it was produced by a company that I guess went out of business or something. And this is another based on a true story, kind of dark. It's a comedy in this case, sort of, based on the story of this guy, Bernie Tiede, I think his name was, that Jack Black plays in the movie. He lives in a place called Carthage, Texas, which is in East Texas. And he moves into this small town. He becomes the funeral director, and he's a very genuine person who's very concerned about his job and, does it really well, and is very compassionate and helpful to people who are mourning. Just a good guy, ultimately. And there's an older woman in town, in this case played by Shirley MacLaine, who is kind of grumpy and seen as somebody that the town folk don't like. And her husband dies, and Bernie, tries to befriend her, and she is initially very cold towards him, but eventually they become friends. And he starts hanging out with her and starts helping her, and something happens between the two of them that causes the whole town to come to Bernie's aid, even though he's done something really bad. And McConaughey plays like the, I want to say he's like the DA or something like that. But again, this is based on a true story, a real crime story. I don't want to say too much more than that. About this incident that really happened in Carthage, Texas, and Linklater read about it and went to the trials and just really wanted to make a movie about it. And Jack Black does a great job, as does Shirley MacLaine and McConaughey. And there's a great sort of Greek chorus of locals that they cast to talk about the goings on in the town, and talk about the Shirley MacLaine character and stuff like that. And so it's really neat. There's some of them are actors, some of them are actual locals. But it's a really well done film, and one that I waited far too long to see. So I'm glad I finally got to check out Bernie. It has some featurettes about the true story and the people they cast from the town, and etc. But yeah, really solid stuff from Mr. Linklater. Next up, I have The Wind Rises from Hayao Miyazaki. And this one is, I know a lot of people saw this when it came out. It was, I think, Miyazaki's last film, and it got a lot of attention. But for whatever reason, I didn't get around to seeing it until now. Got a great English cast, if you're curious about that. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Martin Short, Stanley Tucci, Mandy Patinkin, and William H. Macy. It Well, I'll read the back. From the Academy Award-winning filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki, won Best Animated Feature for Spirited Away in 2002, comes a spellbinding movie beyond compare. The experience, perhaps the greatest animated film the cinema has ever seen. That's one reviewer. Euro dreams of flying and designing beautiful airplanes, inspired by the famous Italian aeronautical designer Caproni, who he sees in dreams. This movie has got a lot of like Fellini in it feels like, which is really cool to have in an animated film. Nearsighted and unable to be a pilot, he becomes one of the world's most accomplished airplane designers, experiencing the key historical events in an epic tale of love, perseverance, and the challenges of living and making choices in a turbulent world. So yeah, this has some cool features on it, looking at the English actors and storyboards and things like that. Not enough features for my money, but anyway, a beautiful film, obviously well worth your time. If you have HBO, the HBO Max portal has a Studio Ghibli hub, and you can watch all the Ghibli films, including this one. So I do recommend checking it out there if you don't want to pick up the Blu-ray, but it obviously looks gorgeous in Blu-ray. His specific hand-drawn style of animation really lends itself well to the Blu-ray format. I would actually love to see his stuff in 4K, but this looks wonderful on Blu-ray, and I was glad to have finally seen The Wind Rises. Okay, a few more pickups here. This is Lipstick from Scream Factory, a Dino De Laurentiis produced film, and this is a tough one. This is a really tough movie, directed by Lamont Johnson, is a filmmaker that I enjoy very much. He did things like One-on-One with Robbie Benson, The Last American Hero with Jeff Bridges, which is an incredibly good car racing movie. Yeah, just a really interesting filmmaker. And this one stars Margot Hemingway and a very young Mariel Hemingway. This is her film debut. She's a high fashion model who's victimized by a brutal assailant and then again by the judicial system that's supposed to protect her. Chris Sarandon plays this music teacher who brutally attacks her. And it's rough. It's a rough watch. And it sort of becomes a revenge movie, and it's interesting to watch it now for sure. Anne Bancroft plays the lawyer that works with the Margot Hemingway character to go to court and try and get this man convicted for the rape that he has done. And, you can guess it doesn't necessarily go well. And so then the film progresses from there to a pretty intense climax. But this one's pretty underseen and underappreciated at this time. It has a new audio commentary with genre film critic Justin Kurzweil and film historian Amanda Reyes, who I love. I love Amanda Reyes' commentaries. Very good stuff. And there's a new interview with actor Perry King. And then there's also an interview with Chris Sarandon, I believe. I don't know why that's not noted on the back, but Chris Sarandon is interviewed as well. It's really interesting to hear his take on the whole thing. Chris Sarandon, obviously known for things like Fright Night, etc. Pretty scary in this movie. Pretty creepy, for sure. Yeah, so an interesting, again, revenge film. Now available on Blu-ray. That is Lipstick from 1976. And then just a quick goofy pickup, Going Ape. This, obviously, as you can see, stars Danny DeVito and Tony Danza and a bunch of chimpanzees. And I can't remember if I've seen this movie or not, but it has music by Elmer Bernstein, which is kind of awesome. Danny DeVito, Tony Danza, Stacey Nelkin, and Jessica Walter headline this crazy family comedy, but it's a trio of orangutans that really steal the show. After a wealthy circus celebrity passes away, his son discovers he's the sole heir to a $5 million estate if he can look after 3 prized apes for the next 2 years. It won't be easy and it won't be quiet, as the apes are just one of the series of inherent surprises. So definitely looking forward to checking out Going Ape from Paramount. This was just a cheap Blu-ray, and again, a movie I haven't seen or haven't seen in a long time. And I was like, that looks like fun. Why not? I'll get Going Ape. Okay, and then lastly, this is a tricky one because I had to sort of approximate a DVD release. Now, this film is called Los Reyes. It is a documentary from 2018. And it came out on DVD only from Grasshopper Films. And I saw it via Canopy, although it is also available via Mubi. And it is one of my favorite things that I've seen in a long, long time. And it is about basically these two dogs. This is a nonfiction film that sort of follows these two dogs around. Let's see, this is Football and I think Cola maybe? I can't remember how to say the other dog's name. But so you have a younger dog and an older dog. And they live at this skate park in Santiago, Chile. And so we just sit around and watch them go about their daily business. And what's interesting is the film started as a film about the skaters at this skate park, these young kids, and became about the dogs. And I think that's so interesting. So what you still have is the dogs doing their stuff and wandering around the skate park. Football loves to have like a plastic bottle in his mouth or whatever. And Shola, she likes her tennis ball. So they're playing with that stuff. But all the while, we don't ever see the faces of the kids, but we overhear their conversations. They talk about the bad stuff that's going on at home. They talk about drug stuff, drug deals, all kinds of things while we're looking at these two innocent dogs, mostly sleeping or just wandering around. And it's just fascinating stuff. Just absolutely fascinated me. I have to give credit to Kevin Clark and Amelie Soderbeck over at the Viva Physical Media Blu-ray channel YouTube show for Scarecrow Video. Those guys are wonderful, and they do a lot of dog movies on the show, and they mentioned several of these on one episode of their show. Definitely go check out Viva Physical Media. That's a really great show with both of them. I enjoy their stuff a lot. And they mentioned Los Reyes, and I went and watched it, and like I said, absolutely loved it. One of my favorite things I've seen in a long, long time. Definitely go check it out on Canopy or Mubi if you can't get the Grasshopper DVD, because it's just wonderful. A little sad at the end. I'm going to lead with that so people know that there's maybe some sad stuff at the end, but for the most part, it's not like a lot of bad stuff happens to these dogs. It's just them hanging out, doing their thing. We see them behave. We see them, chasing after, a couple donkeys that are being, brought past the park, and just all kinds of, day-to-day stuff. If you're a dog person, I can't see how you wouldn't enjoy this, just watching dogs. I don't know. For me right now, watching dogs do stuff is just kind of my own personal comfort place. And so this is just really a wonderful documentary, and I can't recommend it highly enough. That is Los Reyes. So that's going to do it for this collection update / what I've been watching kind of thingy. Hopefully there's some stuff in here for you folks to check out and enjoy. And I will just say I thank you for watching or listening to the show, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.